This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more. Hello everybody, Mike here. Welcome to the very first Mike Talks in a very long time. I've decided to pick this little bonus series up again. It'll probably still be pretty irregular, but I have a bunch of people that I want to talk to. This is, a companion to my main podcast, 20th Century Boy, and this week, for the first one back, I'm talking to Dave Ferrier and Dean Thomas. Now, I've worked with Dave in the past at Fox FM. He's a really good friend of mine, and we've had, as I allude to in this chat, countless discussions about life, the industry, taking chances on yourself, and yeah, we touch on that a bit here. Dino, it was the first time I ever met him, but he is the anchor on the Chrissy Salmon Brownie breakfast show here in Melbourne, which is finishing up at the end of the year. And together, the two of them have created an online animated web series called Childish Dino. It is hilarious, it's super fun, and you can watch it at Childish Dino wherever you watch stuff, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's really great, and it was awesome talking to them about their process here, the kinds of animation and comedy influences that they have, and as well as that, just sort of like their journeys and their careers in radio and moving around and taking that leap into doing something completely different and leaving that safety net of radio, which is something that I grapple with a lot, doing my own creative stuff, but also working for a company. You're always kind of drawing the line between taking a chance on yourself, but needing that financial stability, I suppose. And it was really cool chatting to these guys, and it really made me motivated to keep going and doing more chats like this. So hopefully there'll be a few more soon. If you do want to check out some of the other episodes of Mike Talks I did in the past, there are episodes up there with Broden Kelly from Auntie Donna, Ryan Shelton, Jack Post from Hamish and Andy, YouTuber Dave Lee Down Under, Gogglebox's Adam and Simon, and musician Alex Moses. But for now, here's my chat with Dave Ferrier and Dean Thomas about Childish Dino. Welcome to Mike Talks, the sometimes bonus edition of my podcast that I sometimes do when I sometimes have time. At the moment, I do have time, and we're back from Mike Talks with Dave Ferrier and Dean Thomas. Welcome to the show, guys.
Mike, hello.
What's up, Mike? Thanks for having us, you beautiful man.
Fantastic to have you both in. And now, I know you both, and I've worked with you, Dave, for like a lot in the past, but do you want to just give everyone a brief overview of who you are? Dean, do you want to go first?
Sure, man. I've been working in radio since I was 18, and have just been making comedy bits in radio my whole life. I've been anchoring the Chrissy Salmon Brownie show for like 7 years. That's me, Dave.
I'm Dean's friend, David.
Okay, and what else do you do?
Right now, I am celebrating the release of our cartoon, Childish Dino, that we worked for a long time on. Now, Dean and I met, became friends at Nova 937 in Perth. That's where we met. Then we both ended up here in Melbourne. Dean has gone on to have a wonderful career here at Nova 100.
One of the most loved men in radio.
Oh, yes. Hands down.
You're crazy.
And it's you or Carl Sanderland.
Both very similar people in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And I have gone on to be something of a radio journeyman, moving around a bit. I've lived everywhere except the Northern Territory, Adelaide, and Tasmania. All the capitals,
all the other countries as well.
Just those states in particular.
I remember the first time I met Dave. I was in the studio in Perth, and this tall, handsome boy walked in, and then we started laughing about the same things, and then we started even making stuff as early as that in our early 20s.
Yeah, they let us do a late night show
locally in Perth, where
really?
I think we'd pre-record this weird little 1 a.m. show.
Yeah.
And we were playing like the Beatles and stuff and just doing awful skits.
But it was so bad. Remember the one where there was one where I pretended to come back drunk from a wedding I'd just been at?
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty convincing drunk acting.
Mate, you were fantastic.
And we had I'm blanking on her name. Who left Nova the newsroom?
Lee Coolman or the boss?
No. The she was in the newsroom. She went to she was at WA today or Perth now or something, and she agreed to like write an article about our Lexi.
Right, she did an article about.
She's next week's guest, actually.
Wow. So our mate did an article on this guerrilla radio show that was dangerous, but it was just us two knobs doing a pre-recorded 1 hour show.
Yeah, right.
It was gorgeous.
Love that.
We just wanted to make stuff. That's all we've been doing.
And I was actually in the newsroom at first. But I was like lying to myself about thinking, no, news is fine. Yeah. So, as Dean and I became mates and I started doing more stuff on air, and we both wanted to get out of Perth. And then you went first, right? Because then Mike Cass took you over there, and then I
did like national late nights, and that was so fun, man. It was just putting on drunk people on air. It was like Jerry Springer for radio, and also I got a creative outlet and I was doing bits. So it was cool.
Love this. Yeah. And people might also know Dave is the artist behind, because you're a cartoonist. I think you sold yourself short a little bit. And admittedly, both of you, I think, are profoundly successful people in this industry and in a lot of other projects.
Thanks, mate.
Which makes it hard to just talk to you.
Back at you, Mike. Can I just interrupt and say, the way you're tracking, we're going to be asking you for a job.
You're going all right, Mike.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
We're going to need some. We're going to borrow some money in the future.
You're on the cutting edge.
We're getting there.
You're making
slowly crossing.
Everyone loves you.
Well, I was going to say, Dave,
good
what you said, Dino, about meeting Dave for the first time is exactly my experience. Seeing a tall, handsome man and being like, wow, this guy's just going to beat me at everything. He's so much more talented. But no, Dave, you've always had my back. And Dave is the artist of my other podcast, Harry Potter and the Boys, my fan fiction Harry Potter podcast. Dave does the cover art to all of that.
So I haven't seen this, man.
I'll show you. Maybe.
That might lead us into what we're here to actually talk about, which is Childish Dino, your new cartoon, which has a suspiciously similar art style to Harry Potter and the Boys.
Isn't that funny?
Really?
You called me organising this, and you just watched the episodes and you went, I'm getting a bit of a South Park vibe. I'm like, I'm not original. Like it's not, I want to wear my influences on my sleeve. Like I perhaps should work a little harder against that.
No, the influences are influences.
Yeah, we love it.
Yeah.
And do you want to just explain what Childish Dino is, how it came about, and where it's at the moment?
Yeah, basically, I grew up in a real broke area in rural WA, and I've always been a bit extra, especially as a kid. Like, I always found myself operating on not necessarily a better level, but certainly a different level to the other kids.
Different wavelength.
Yeah, and that sort of got me, steered me into radio and all that stuff. And then I loved making things. And then how did this start?
We were in your kitchen, and I said, I've always wanted to do something animated. And you said, I've got this idea for a character. It's like basically a kid with my voice.
Yeah.
And we went from there.
That's how it started, man. And then we made this tiny little 90-second test episode 3 years ago with maybe 4 gags in it. It was very primitive. The animation, we made it for $500, I remember.
Yeah, and that was purely because I knew someone who knew how to use After Effects, but he was a professional, so we had to pay him his hourly rate. But yeah, I was drawing the frames on my iPad on Procreate, which is pixel art, so you can't zoom in on it because it just blurs. So there was a lot of like, here's the frames. We don't care how crude it looks. It's all about the charm of the character. And he would come back and go, if you want this to be a close-up, you need to just zoom in and then draw the thing again.
Right.
Because I can't zoom in on this. So it was real lo-fi. It was real homebrew style of production.
That's kind of the charm as well, because when I say it's similar to South Park, it's like South Park's animation style, particularly when it started, was all about crudeness. And like they now sort of have tightened up the animation a lot, but it still has that kind of paper cutout feel of it.
Yeah.
And I guess, so just so listeners know, it's now been sort of picked up by, is it Screen Australia or Screen Victoria?
Both actually.
No, so they both gave us money to make this first.
Cool. And it's a web series now you can watch on YouTube is the best place to watch it.
Well, actually, we've been pushing the Instagram and TikTok, right?
Okay,
it's where we've got our views, and we've sort of silently put it on YouTube, so people are
it's
looking
more for
it.
legacy on
Right, because I
YouTube.
found it on YouTube. good
Right.
to know you want people. What are the tags for?
The handle is at Childish Dino and
great.
Deano, Childish Dino.
But wherever you social media, but if you want to see the blockbuster numbers, TikTok's the place.
Yeah,
to
okay.
go.
And so what I really like about the show, I've seen the 4 eps that are out already. And
wicked.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's like 5-minute-ish episodes,
Yeah.
so it's really digestible. You can probably binge it all.
Snackable.
Yeah, very snackable content. And I really like, so obviously Dino, the main character who's based on you, to me, it's sort of like Eric Cartman kind of mixed with maybe like, have you seen much Bob's Burgers?
Not much. No.
Because the chaos of that character really reminds me of the chaos of a lot of the Bob's Burgers character, where he just feels like he's kind of all over
Is
the
his name
place.
Gene, the son?
Yeah, Gene. It
Yeah,
reminds me a
yeah.
lot of Gene and Eric Cartman, and they're just kind of not as evil as Cartman.
No,
but
I
just-
have said Cartman with a conscience.
Yes, it's
right.
Cartman with like it's a very delightful Cartman kind of character.
Yeah, he's a ray of sunshine.
yeah.
On the test, the preview when we only started the social media accounts 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the first thing I posted is just Dean's face with then it's a gradient of yellow to orange.
Yeah.
And the idea being like he is literally a ray of sunshine.
Yeah, eternal optimist, like wants to make everything better but fails at it. Like,
And I wanted to paint the picture that his home life and his socioeconomic situation isn't great, like mine wasn't. But
Yeah.
I was blissfully unaware of that,
Yeah.
and nothing seemed impossible.
yeah. Well, there is an episode where I assume it's autobiographical, and you go to your mum's work because you're sick from school or something, and that was
Yeah.
a really funny episode where he bursts. I hope it doesn't matter if
No,
I spoil it,
please.
but he bursts into a meeting that his mum's in and goes, "Give my mum a raise."
Yeah, he thinks
Embarrasses the
it's that simple.
Yeah.
I did think it was that simple. I remember there was this radio shares guy, like stock market guy in Perth, that would go on the radio and give stock market tips.
Yeah.
And at the age of 11, I wrote him a letter asking how I get rich.
Did he reply?
He did. The sweet guy. I think he rang mum and said, "What is this? Is this kid all right? What's going on here?" But I just thought if I talked to the right people,
Yeah, get all the tips.
we could get out of this shitty house.
Yeah.
And I thought it was that easy. And in some ways, I still do.
But that's beautiful. It's naive and beautiful, and that's
That's what the character is.
And that's I think also what we're tapping into and playing with is like when you're a kid, you don't know any different. Like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you don't have. So Dean, even though it's a backdrop, which you do get bits of, particularly at the end of the work episode where they talk about the things he wants for him and his mum, and the next one is the bedtime one, and it is like he doesn't know that they're he knows that they're broke, but it's like it doesn't stop him from having a good time or
having a dream.
doesn't slow him down.
I can't speak for anyone else, but growing up with some trauma, I didn't know it wasn't the way other kids were living. And,
exactly.
And for that reason, I was happy as hell. It's, when you get a bit older and you think, oh.
I was talking about this to someone the other night because I had a pretty middle class upbringing, but I went to a really prestigious private school in Melbourne.
Quiet scholarship.
On scholarship, admittedly.
Quiet
Yeah,
scholarship.
But,
You're a flash boy.
Yeah, I remember coming back from summer holidays and everyone would be like, we went skiing in Aspen. We did a Europe trip. We went to North America. We did New York for 3 weeks. And then I'd just be like, my dad drove me and my brother to Movie World. So we literally drove for 2 days up the east coast of Australia and went to Movie World on the Gold Coast. And I was like,
I know what you
and
mean.
it was awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We loved it.
Yeah.
We went to Wet and Wild as well, but it's like it's like you said, you don't know what you don't know. It's like all these other kids are going overseas trips for 3 weeks and my dad's like, get in the car, we're driving to Queensland. And I'm like, yeah, cool.
And there's good and bad to that. Like you can grow up with tools to appreciate things, but also, what I've certainly realized in later life that there's some trauma that I've had to speak to a therapist
You'd
about.
have to unpick. You have to process.
There are some great takeaways, man. Some amazing takeaways.
But it's something that Dean and I relate to, and I think it's what we hope is something that's relatable to the show. Is we all went to primary school. We all had, and I don't know if we've really there was an episode that we wrote that didn't actually make the run where Dean goes to Kit's house and he sees what they're like and it's the thing I'm excited to maybe get into a bit more is like we all had the friend who had cooler stuff and whose like house was better and like they had better snacks in the cupboard and stuff.
There was a kid in my year who had a SNES with Street Fighter 2. And I'd be at his house a lot.
I shamelessly became friends with people because they had a PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
Like, and that was the only reason
we would always have like the previous generation of consoles. So like when like the PS2 came out, Dad bought us a PS1 and we were like, this is awesome. And then, you know, PS3 came out, we got a PS2 and like you know, when the Nintendo 64 came out, we had the SE and NES and stuff. And we were always one behind just because it was like too expensive to get the new stuff. But yeah, you love it. And when you're writing this show, is that like, I mean, obviously that's a thematic piece that you're trying to get out, but is that trauma something you're trying to unpack through the show?
Yeah, I think it's a bit cathartic, but like it's also a celebration. I find it to be a celebration because, as I said, like, I was such an extra kid, and I don't know why. That it just makes for really good cartoons. Like, and this is problematic now, but looking back, I remember I would have been 8 or 9, and my sister was going to the school ball in our little country town. So she would have been about 16, and I was an 8-year-old, and we're getting the family photos with my sister and her date to the ball.
Yeah.
And I leant over and like looked up and said, "If you touch my sister, I'll kill you." What authority? Why would I say that?
But it's like when you're a kid, it's like you see that in a movie and you're like, well, this is how you're supposed to behave.
You parrot.
Exactly. And there's the death episode in our series where it's sort of touches on like toxic masculinity without being too preachy. It's just like men kill shit on telly. It's fun as hell.
Yeah.
They end up killing a bird and realizing immediately the gravity of how precious life is.
I watched that this morning.
We've talked about that, like, is when you're a kid, you test your limits and then you find your moral line when you overstep it. And that's like in that episode, that is what happens. It's like, you know, he's like, oh yeah, this is cool. And then then he kills the bird. He thinks he kills the bird. And it's like all that weight. And like everyone goes through that as a kid where you think like, oh yeah. And then you overstep your line. You're like, I feel bad and gross. And like, I don't want to do that again.
I had an exact example of this at school. Well, like one of my friends, we were all just at lunchtime and he's like, do you think I could throw this apple at that bird? And just like hit the bird. And we were like, probably not. And he just throws this apple, hits a bird in the neck. It instantly dies. And everyone was like, oh, this is fucked. And he got a detention because the teacher was like, well, you can't kill a bird. Like, you have to have detention. It's just like, it really sets in. Even when you're a kid, I remember like, we used to kill ants. Me and my brother would kill ants. And Dad would always be like, oh, don't kill the ants. And we'd just be like, why would we not kill them?
They're dumb ants, old man.
Dumb ants. But now, like as an adult, I'm like, oh, I probably wouldn't kill an ant intentionally.
I step over snails.
Exactly.
So in Perth, like, when it would rain where I lived, like the snails would come out like around a certain time of year. And it was just like around the age of 9, it's like, hey, this is fun. Stomp. And then me and like a little friend from next door just went on a fucking killing spree.
So
then afterwards going like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that.
So every episode comes from one of these main themes. So we start there and work backwards. So the death one, show and tell, is a nod to my dear mum who raised four of us on her own. I'd never have any of the shit you're supposed to on any of the theme days. But I'd just try and wing it.
Kind of reminded me of Nelson from The Simpsons doing show and tell, and he's got the can of tomatoes, and he's like, this can may or may not have contained tomatoes.
Man.
But and I love that show and tell one where you go up to, is it Kit, the other character, and he's like, that was the best show and tell I've ever seen, man. But yeah, it's such a great show. Have you watched much South Park? Because I find South Park also focuses a lot on like the naivety of children in a different way.
Sure. I in 98 when it came out, I was on it and watched it all, but in my later years, no, I dropped off watching animation. Maybe in uni days I watched a bit of Family Guy, but not really much.
I'm still watching it.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, but I think those kids are they're more adult than Dino. Like they're more sophisticated. They're often like, particularly Stan and Kyle, they're like the moral center of the show.
Yeah.
They're the straight men.
Yeah.
And
all
then
the
characters
adults
like
are useless.
Randy's the funniest character by far. And the show's even become about him in the same way The Simpsons started out about Bart and then it became about Homer because it's like the funny dumb dad. But yeah, so that's definitely a difference. Like Dean is a kid. Like he thinks he knows how the world runs and he runs around like he does, but then his rationalizations and what he thinks are good ideas are very childlike. And that's like the Goes to Work episode, I think best exemplifies that. Whereas his intention is, I'm going to help my mum to improve our situation, and I'm going to do it by tripling profits for the business. And then what he does is just ridiculous.
And he goes to the urinal and pulls his pants down to his ankles.
Which is very, like, I got to cop to, like, that. Butters does that in South Park. But actual
hilarious.
Children do that.
Someone an adult man do that at the MCG.
Okay,
at the MCG?
Yeah, man. It was a packed urinal. And
was it Eddie McGuire?
It was a man, I'd say over 60, ankles, pants around ankles.
Wow.
Breathtaking to watch.
But yeah.
So you said you dropped off animation a bit, but like now you're literally working in animation, which is, I assume, a really small industry in Australia. Like I haven't seen many Australian cartoons. Like, what, have you gone and revisited any animated shows or?
Not really at all. I like a bit of Rick and Morty, but I skew to drama when I'm consuming television. But I love writing comedy. I've been doing it for so long. I love the art of timing and pulling back on some bits, killing jokes when you just don't need them. Because if you overcrowd dialogue or space, stuff gets lost. And I just like the beats of someone watching it. That's what I try and cater to. Just make it easy and palatable. Not how nuanced are they trying to be here? I just want to make it simple and funny.
Yeah.
I'm more the cartoon boy out of the two of us. Dean's more the comedic genius.
So what cartoons have you historically watched, Dave? And also, I agree with you. Way funnier.
That's insane.
I was raised by my mum, my dad, and The Simpsons.
Yeah, right.
Even right now, did not plan this, but I'm wearing that's Bart's license plate on my t-shirt.
Yeah, Dave's got custom t-shirts with obscure Simpsons references.
There's this guy in the UK who makes these incredible Simpsons t-shirts with references to the golden era. Yeah. So, really, really, it's one of the things that make me happy about growing up when I did, was growing up with that era of The Simpsons. Like it just informed my sense of humor, what I knew about the world, and continues to. Like it was a show that at its best, and it still does this, it doesn't talk down to the audience. As a broad and accessible and a wacky cartoon it is, like they will bring in guest appearances of like Nobel laureates and like they'll make jokes referencing poets, and they'll do parodies of scenes from The Godfather. Yeah. And like, I just think it's such a valuable contribution.
I agree, and
to comedy and to culture. I think there's a whole generation of us who were brought up on it.
100%. And I was talking the other day to someone about how like it's amazing how even today I can watch a movie I've never seen before, but know exactly what it is and what it's about because The Simpsons did a parody of it. And I'm like, almost shot for shot. Like you see the shots and you're like, oh, The Simpsons did this. I remember watching. Even Family Guy, I remember watching Taken for the first time, and Family Guy had done a parody of it. And I was like, I think I've seen this before. And I'm like, oh no, there was an episode of Family Guy where they parodied Taken beat for beat.
Clockwork Orange is a big, like in The Simpsons, where Lisa's conducting the experiment on her brother, and there's a scene where he's reaching up for the cupcakes, and it's the bird. It's just, it's throughout. It's throughout, and it's also like something that I've had arguments with radio bosses about, not arguments, maybe overstating it, but just like I'd really plead my case about having running jokes and jokes that if you're hearing it for the first time, you won't necessarily get it. Like there's an opinion, people seem to land on one side or the other. I love inside jokes and I love running jokes.
But interesting point on that, Dave. Like when you watch, because I'm a huge Letterman man. I used to love Dave Letterman.
Yeah.
And at the top of his monologue, they would put the camera on a crowd member and you'd know that there was a joke before the crowd, but they didn't give a shit about letting the audience, the TV audience, knowing what the joke was.
Yeah.
But you just knew that there was that vibe there.
Because you've got a brain, you know, like, so that's the thing that would happen. It was like you'd encounter a radio boss who go like, no, if everyone can't get it, you'll alienate your audience. And like, that's not true, because I grew up on The Simpsons where they would have like the Bart's Casino episode, Mr. Burns Casino, and Bart runs his own casino. And then this guy is like, oh, who's the entertainment? He organizes entertainment for his little treehouse casino, and it's Robert Goulet. And I have no idea who Robert Goulet is. Yeah. But I was like, okay, he's some sort of famous Vegas crooner. Yeah. And then when he's, singing and he spins the microphone and it hits Milhouse in the face, funny. Like, I never was like, I don't know who that is, I don't like this. You just get it. Like, treat your audience with some respect. And so that is something that The Simpsons did. And yes, things like Letterman. Yeah. And I really value stuff like that.
People have senses. They can sense things. They don't need to be.
Yeah. I don't like catering to the dumbest to the lowest common denominator in a broad audience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I get that, and you guys have way more radio experience than me, but I get that perspective from like a radio content director to be like, they want radio to be almost, you can come in at any time and you feel like it's all just reset in its own isolated thing. So if you're driving along and you just tune in, you're not coming in the middle of things. But I completely agree.
It. I just think it's wrong. I think that if you hear an inside joke, and it entices definitely you. Exactly. It's a club that I'm like, I wonder what that means. I want to know more. Yep. And then if you do get it, you're like, haha, I get that. And not everyone will. And I feel closer to this show
all the time. Like they use stuff like that all the time, and it gets people in. And I think when you do hear it, you're like, oh, I want to understand this joke. Like clearly there's a legacy.
Yeah.
Here.
Yes.
Yeah. Mike Talks will be right back. Excuse this interruption, teachers and students. Mike here, the guy from the podcast, with a brief interruption to let you know about all the other stuff that I do. Mike Talks is a bonus edition of my solo podcast, 20th Century Boy. It's the conversations you wish you were having about the stuff that nobody else cares about. In the last few weeks, we've talked about Weird Al Yankovic, my Princess Leia costume for Halloween, getting featured in the Wall Street Journal, the Super Mario Brothers movie, and so many other pop culture topics. You can check out clips and full episodes on my YouTube channel, Radio Mike, and support me on Patreon, patreon.com/Radio Mike. Plus, if you're into Harry Potter, I do a weekly Harry Potter fan fiction podcast called Harry Potter and the Boys. Dave Ferrier actually did the artwork for it, so check it out. Every week, I get a comedian on to read my Harry Potter fan fiction that I wrote when I was 13 years old. Follow me on Instagram, radio.mike, and TikTok, radio.mike, and if you like this show, tweet about it, @itsradiomike. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, enough from me. Let's get back to the chat with Dave Ferrier and Dean Thomas.
I'm not saying there aren't people out there who would go, I don't get that. Yeah. But I think don't worry about those people.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
And what about you, Dino? Like comedically, what kind of influences do you have, and what do you think? Have any of them permeated into the writing of Childish Dino, or just more generally?
Yeah, I remember a light went off in my head when I saw The Late Show at 6 or 7 years old, when I saw Shit Scared with with Rob Sitch and Mick Malloy.
Oh, yeah.
A light went off there, and I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible, like a rush of blood. In my later years, the first 2 seasons of The Chappelle Show, the skits on that, the way that Dave Chappelle's peripheral characters are often really normal, and then you've just got the insane ones that come in. The art of letting the straight characters be the perfect amount straight. I really took that away from early Chappelle Show. We're talking like 2003. What else? I think the comedy beats in Happy Gilmore are breathtaking.
Yep, classic
Happy
Adam
Gilmore
Sandler
was like a
comedy.
perfect comedy. I don't know if anyone's. I know it's so over. Like we've all seen it too many times.
I know.
It is a perfect comedy.
I'm insecure about saying this because anyone listening will be like, "Oh yeah, good, yeah, great."
No, but actually watch it and analyze it. It's a perfect
truly.
comedy.
I mean, some of the later Sandler stuff, you know.
No,
got a bit-
but yeah, of course.
Even
Go back and watch
Big
Happy.
Daddy. Big Daddy's
Yeah.
a very
That's-
funny
yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Lots
yeah.
of funny moments in that as well.
And then Between Two Ferns, what Zach Galifianakis did with that blew my brain in half. That was like pure cocaine to me.
And so do you guys, is it just you two sort of on the writing team for the show?
We did in development, we did a day with Michelle Brazier,
Oh, yeah.
hilarious comedian. Check
Yeah.
out her special on Paramount Plus.
I did see her
Average
do
Bear.
that show live, which was fantastic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She's a freak. What? She's the best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then we went away and sort of, worked on it.
Yeah, because when we were having writing sessions, the direction of it changed. So what we ended up with wasn't much influence.
It was
by
a
the
long.
other stuff.
Want to emphasize, it was a long process.
Yeah.
Like it was that test episode came out in 2018.
Yeah.
So
So it's been, and I've sort of known you.
Since then we have met.
I kind of
and worked
remember
together.
you back then when I first met you, maybe being like, yeah, I'm working on this cartoon. And then 3 years later,
Yeah.
it sort of hadn't turned into anything. I'm like,
so if you are listening and you have a creative project or anything that you're working on, don't be discouraged if it's taking a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Sometimes
100%.
things just take as long as they need to take.
Scott Ryan, who made Mr. In Between, wrote and started. Have you guys seen Mr. In Between?
I
No,
haven't,
but you
no.
keep bringing it up, so I think
should.
I really have to.
I really encourage you to just
Okay.
check it out. He started that in 05.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And it's 2022. Like things take as long as they take.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I noticed you also, there's a lot of guest stars, like Tony Martin was one of the teachers and was Sam Pang, like had a couple lines. Like, is that something you want to integrate more, like getting some of the comedy royalty of Australia into the show?
Absolutely. It's the biggest thrill. And Tony, because I've known Tony Martin for about 7 years now through our Chrissy Sam and Brownie show.
Yeah.
He's the most supportive guy. Like I made this obscure footy show called Dino's Footy Show with Franco Cozzo.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
Tony entered every episode's details into IMDb just out of nowhere.
Oh, really?
Like he's the
Just to like give it a online presence.
yeah, he's the most supportive guy of comedy, and you can see if you're making stuff. I think he sees what he was at a younger age, and so yeah. But interestingly, most of the adults are pretty straight in Childish Dino. They're mundane, and that's how I saw adults growing up.
Yeah.
I would look at adults and go, "Why are they so fucking miserable?"
So they don't necessarily get the funniest lines.
No.
That's
Mr. Ferg is the least funny. He's the opposite of funny. He's very mean. And we gave that role to the funniest man in the country.
And when Tony came in and voiced that, he was method acting. It was wild,
it
man.
was.
Like he was acting so chilling in between takes,
Yeah,
and he was
we've-
answering our directorial questions in this character, this cold
So good.
character.
We've got a behind the scenes video that we'll put on TikTok after the series.
Yeah,
finishes.
and then Pangy's lines, they're just normal adult interactions.
Yeah.
And then
cool.
the kids are meant to be real kids. So then, like that's where the first episode is. You meant to like establish the reality with the real kids, and then Dean leaps off the screen.
The empathy of Judy in the first episode of Show and Tell, the teacher, it's just the perfect amount of a young teacher realizing this kid's got some issues and her dealing with it in I think a really realistic way. Like, okay, mate, let's go and have a chat.
Yeah, I've heard from some teachers that love that first episode because of that dynamic.
Yeah. Dave
talk about it
O'Neill
afterwards.
voiced a line. It was actually the first time we gave an adult a funny bit, but it broke the rules of our cartoon and it wasn't working for that reason.
Yeah, right.
So we had to get rid of it because it just didn't quite work, right? Like,
Yeah.
And I think it's important to establish the rules of your universe, you know?
Yeah. So Dave O'Neill was cut from Childish Dino.
Was he actually cut?
Well,
Yeah.
but then we got...
It
first we
was
got
animated and everything. It was,
Oh, wow.
First we got Jonathan Brown to do it,
yeah.
and then we're just like, no, it's just not working.
Yeah, right.
It was like I remember it was an after a show fave. It was like we need someone to do this one line. Brownie, can you do it? And he can't not be Jonathan Brown.
Yeah,
So
okay.
he delivered the line.
And by that you mean magnificent.
yeah, it was too like I've won 3 premierships. It was meant to be like, it was meant to be this security guard character. So then Dave O'Neill did an awesome job, but then it at the last minute, we're like, it's just not. I don't know, doesn't work.
All the adults have just super realistic reactions to the scenarios in the cartoon, and that seems to work really well.
Dave, you and I have spoken a lot and this is a bit of a pivot, which I hope is cool. You and I have spoken a lot over the years of being mates about like taking a chance on yourself, getting into the unknown, and and you've always encouraged me since a very long time ago to be like, just keep doing your own thing, like it's good, like whatever. How do you guys feel, especially Dino with you, like Chrissy, Sam and Brownie is finishing up. That's like a big legacy breakfast show here in Melbourne. It's been going for 8 years.
Yeah, 7-8 years. Yeah.
So, with that finishing up, like how do you both feel about transitioning out of radio and entering the wild blue yonder, I guess, and just seeing what happens? Like how do you feel and how do you think about that?
Well, I feel that I just want to keep making the things that I'm passionate about, and it took me a while to really figure out what that was, and that's writing and executing comedy. Now that can be in broadcasting, and it has been, but now just for this next little bit, for a year at least, I'm going to concentrate that passion and that skill I believe I have into this cartoon and to making things. So I forget
well, I guess it's just, I mean that's a good answer. I guess it's just like how do you feel scared, or do you feel like I think that's a great reframing.
Oh God, yes, all the time.
Yeah.
Every waking moment.
It sounds like you've reframed in your mind, like I'm not necessarily a radio person, I'm a comedy person, and I can deliver comedy through radio or podcast or cartoon or whatever it is.
And I want to see what that looks like.
Okay.
Because this skill that I believe I have can be on a fair different few formats, radio, this cartoon, obscure show I made with Kotso, that's my direction.
Yeah. And what gives you the courage to leap into that? Because you must be like in radio, it's like you've had a full-time job, you're stable, you have a regular income. Like, what gives you the courage to be like, I'm going to do this?
Evidence to me that it's worked in the past.
Yeah, great.
And to think when the negative thoughts come in, they're utterly pointless. And I've gone over this with my therapist. They don't serve you. They are there to maybe put in protectors so you don't go broke and make stupid risks. But I believe that the evidence is there to keep trying and keep making stuff.
Yeah, cool.
So that takes a bit of the fear away.
Yeah, I love that.
Still scary, man, but it's also very cool.
Yeah, and it's exciting. And what about you, Dave? Do you have similar feelings?
Yeah, I definitely want to pivot into animation full time. As like the rest of my life. And it's something that I just didn't ever even, I mean, this has taken 4 years to get to here. So, but before that, it's always been my dream. Like it's always like I, wrote in year 5, what do you want to do when you're older? I want to make a cartoon with my friend Scott Young. But it's a different friend, but the dream is still the same.
Yeah,
but
Scott Young is a hack.
Yeah,
he's doing well. He's in Perth doing stuff. Sorry,
what
Scott.
does he do? What does he do?
I think he's a guitar teacher. I think.
Oh, that's cool.
That's last. We haven't been in touch for a while.
You still cooking meth?
I think he is. Yeah, in a bus. Yeah. Out in the.
They made a TV show about it.
They did actually. Yeah, that man's name is Walter White. So. Yeah, I never thought it's always been the dream, but I've always, first of all, until recently, earlier you said, the animation in Australia doesn't seem like there's much going on. That is true, but there is this funny little boom that's happening.
Koala Man with Hugh Jackman, I saw.
There's a production company in Melbourne that opened in the last year or so, maybe. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But it's the first ever production company that services adult animation. And it's like the first one in Australia. You got that, like Michael Cusack is just his success is so inspiring to me.
Man.
He's just done it on his own from his bedroom in Wollongong when he started. I think that's where he's from. But then also Bluey is the biggest kid show on the planet by far. I don't know if you've ever been to a Big W recently.
Yeah.
Everything is bluey.
You know what? I listened to a gaming podcast based out of Pennsylvania in the USA, and I heard them talking about Bluey.
No way.
And I was just like, what? Like, I thought Bluey was like this little Australian kid show, and because I don't have
Huge in the
kids.
UK, huge in the US.
That's
I've got a niece and nephew. The niece now is Bluey aged and went for her birthday, and everything she got was Bluey themed.
Yeah.
So there is now. It seems like there's this emerging industry. So it feels like the right time. But also, I've always been interested in a lot of things. I've always been jealous of people who are just into one thing. So that's what led me down, towards radio. And but it's always been in sort of comedy. And I'm also the type of person who has in the past sort of like curbed my ambitions, and because of fear and that sort of protective.
We've spoken a lot about that.
Don't put yourself on the same level as these people who you admire. Like be like a supportive role in that area, just that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The older I get, I realize that everything I've watched and absorbed has given me a certain style, and it's a clear direction, and I'm like to back it,
Yeah, definitely.
And I think there is clearly such a market for adult animation. Like, you look at stuff like BoJack Horseman and Big Mouth and going back to Simpsons, Family Guy, South Park, Bob's Burgers. There's clearly people who want to watch it. So it is amazing that it is finally starting to get traction here as well.
Yeah, and because we put Childish Dino on TikTok, just reading the comments out of America, it's so cool, man. Realizing that people are connecting to it, and I think people are connecting to it because he's from a mildly broken home, and so many childhoods are dodgy, and this is for those people.
It's the charm. It's absolutely the charm of Dino, the character, and that's all you, buddy.
That's very kind.
I have this question that I usually ask towards the end of the show, but it ends up going for another 10 to 12 minutes because it's a big question.
We'll give you quick ones.
No. I like the discussion. It's just I announce, hey, we're starting to wrap up, but there's probably going to be another 10 minutes here. So for both of you, and we can discuss each of these, but what is one, I love to ask this, what is one movie, album, book, and if you play them, video game that you think that everybody should experience in their life? Because this is the crux of what my kind of content is about, pop culture.
I think video game is the easiest one for me to answer right away. I think Zelda Majora's Mask.
Oh yeah, Nintendo 64.
Just because I love it and it was very. I got it for my birthday when I was 12.
It's a fantastic game, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm out of the loop, so there's probably, but just the that specific brand of, would you call it fantasy? Yeah, fantasy.
Yeah, adventure
was just very, very intoxicating to me in a way, and the music and the atmosphere. It felt like a little sinister, that one with the impending moon crashing into Earth.
Yeah,
that or Grand Theft Auto 5.
Oh yeah, two very different games, but we love them both.
Guitar Hero.
Oh yeah, I love a bit of Guitar
Alex
Hero.
the Kid on Sega Master System too. That little boy would do missions and munch on burgers. That's fun as hell.
Little platformer kind of game on Sega. So did you grow up with a Sega?
Yep, and Alex the Kid was built into the console, and I remember roping Mum into it and screaming, "I'm proud of you, Mum."
Is that an episode of the show coming up?
It will be now. It's a good idea. I've just got beautiful memories of that. FIFA shouldn't count, but I've been playing.
I was going to say, I've been playing maybe FIFA.
FIFA is really fun,
but just for the social aspect of it as well. It's besides, the Mario Party is maybe the ultimate party game, or Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
But FIFA, someone comes over.
Every dickhead group of mates have had a FIFA tournament with their own custom trophy.
Yeah.
And have thought that they're the only friends on the planet that have made a trophy. I've won several different trophies to several different groups of mates, but FIFA just brings people together, like Dave said.
Yeah.
Movie wise, and again, there's red flags in it now because it's of the times, but Stand By Me.
Love that movie.
Oh my God. It's just, struck me so hard when I watched it young, and it still does now, because it was that adventure and going out and being rat bags. That group of kids came from different socioeconomic situations.
Yep.
There's a lot of trauma there, but it's beautiful. You learn with River Phoenix's character, and it's a revelation I had growing up, that sometimes adults will let you down. And when he confided about stealing lunch money, that story just
God.
stayed with me. Like,
Childish Dino is kind of like Stand By Me. Stand By Me is Stephen King. Like, he has a surrogate character, but the whole thing, like the narration at the start and the end,
and that
it's a grown up reflecting on his childhood and processing it.
Yeah, and
which I think was sort of what's happening with Childish Dino.
And the beauty of them all just fading away in different directions of life.
I love that ending, because isn't
gorgeous.
it him on his computer, and it's like, I never had friends again like I did when I was 10 years old, which I think, and that has been parodied in The Simpsons and Family Guy, funnily enough, because we were talking about that. But it's especially the running across with the train behind them, like running across the tracks, like that has been parodied in so many things.
And the grim death aspect of that film, they're searching for a body. Perfect.
Phenomenal movie, yeah.
Perfect.
What about you, Dave?
I'm trying to think of a good answer like that. I don't.
But also comedically, Happy Gilmore again.
Yeah, Happy
I
Gilmore.
know Channel 10 played every weekend, but god damn it, man, it's aged okay.
Do you know, I remember watching it in one of the. I might have even been watching it at your place, but you know how his girlfriend leaves him at the start, and then he does the song over the intercom. And then someone comes up to the door. He thinks it's his girlfriend, but it's the old lady. And then the next morning he's running out because he's late. And she runs out going like, "You don't want breakfast?"
Yeah.
I was thinking like, that is the only character who truly loves Happy and accepts him for who he is at that. Because he's not successful at that time. She doesn't want anything else from him. And she loves him for him.
The delivery of that gag is so innocently funny.
It's very, very funny. Billy Madison has so many jokes like that as well. Like, who would steal 30 bag of lunches? And you just see the three of them eating and laughing. And the sloppy Joe's joke, that lady, you're scaring us. And they all laugh, including her. She laughs as well.
Yeah, man.
So maybe Billy Madison is the answer.
All right. Let's do album.
Again, I don't know.
They're the big questions we ask on this show.
Like an album from start to finish.
I'd say the last one I listened to was What's the Story, Morning Glory.
I love that album.
Wow. Maybe the Happy Gilmore of songs. Wonderwall.
Yeah.
The lyrics to that song can't affect me very much.
It's a beautiful song, isn't it?
Like anything that is has like this bittersweet longing in it. Like the line, "I don't believe anybody feels the way about you about
the way I do about you
now." Yeah. Like just that as the sentiment of that is very affects me.
Yeah, that album just I still get chills listening to most of the songs.
Don't Look Back in Anger, Champagne Supernova.
Oh my god, She's Electric. Even like the smaller little poppy ones. It's unbelievable.
I think,
and at the time it was deemed a bit too commercial by pure Oasis purists. I couldn't give a shit. I just
holds up so well.
Oh my god!
And that's like one of the Happy Gilmore. It's been heard too many times.
Yep.
But that it's now. I think that like just as the Beatles in total. Like they're just, I grew up with like, oh yeah, the Beatles. I never listened to them yet. I know all of their songs. But then when you actually invest the time in listening to them, you hear like the what a revolutionary band they were and how much they evolved over the time.
Yeah.
It's not a movie, but I would put the Beatles Get Back.
As the documentary series?
Well, yeah, that will be my answer for the movie.
Cool.
Oh my god.
I have watched it. I've sat through all 6 hours twice. I'm thinking it might become like a Christmas tradition because it came out around this time last year.
Yeah.
To just sit in the room and watch the Beatles work through their creative process
and how normal it was. Like,
and how much they fuck around and get distracted and don't work and just play other people's songs for fun.
Shit. Or just start playing a joke song together.
Yeah, and then just sit there and the different and just seeing this collaboration between four people who are like in complete command of their craft, who have also had so much success that you can see them starting to split apart because they all have their own kind of genius.
Have you watched it, Mike?
I watched the first episode, but I haven't finished it. But you're making me want to go back to it.
Jaw-dropping.
It was honestly just like, I loved the first one. It was just like, I'd never found the other 4 hours to finish it.
Yeah, no,
So,
and it's like I did it when I was doing character designs. For, Like I had something to do while it was on.
Yeah.
But yeah, just and the subplots of like, so George Harrison was always under John and Paul's wing, but you can see he's like, I'm 26 now. I'm starting to feel like I can strike out on my own. Ringo is just happy to be there.
Yeah.
Paul is like the workman. He's like, I want to show up at 9 o'clock, start working, and then finish at 5. You see him come up with the riff for Get Back.
Oh my
like,
God.
as he's like, we need to come up with something, and he just jams it out. And then you got Paul and Yoko, and like Paul's the
John?
complicated. Sorry, John. John's the complicated genius who is not a hard worker at all.
The free spirit.
Who is like, but then he'll come in and go, I've, come up with this. And it's incredible. Oh, man. Just that, the opportunity to be a fly on the wall, not to mention all the 60s-ness of it.
Yeah.
It's, I was just found it so compelling.
And some people won't get the gravity of it. They'll just go, what am I watching 4 people fuck around?
Well,
but if you get it, your mind will be blown to
I think if you've ever tried to come up with something, if you've ever tried to create something,
this is for you.
To see how hard and slow, and like they've got a really tight time frame. They're trying to do this in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They're the Beatles, and they've already been the Beatles for the majority of the time they will ever be the Beatles. Yep. And they're still like, they don't have it down. They don't have a perfect plan. They still have to find their way through it. Yeah.
That's a great analysis of that. Books. Let's finish it with books. Do we have a favorite book?
I'm not a big reader, so any inspiration creatively, I haven't drawn from literature. So
fair enough.
I don't feel like I have the best answer for this, Dave.
It's not fiction.
That's fine.
I highly recommend everyone read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
I started the audiobook.
I've read it.
You've read it. There you go.
That's some wild shit.
So listen to the audiobook. That's what I did, because it is like a podcast and an audiobook.
Yeah.
What he's done with his life, the level of trauma he experienced before he had his turning point, and then became like this lethargic, depressed adult.
Yeah.
And how he flipped that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's a masochist, but I've read. I remember when I was young, I read this like bullshit book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Like it's that I don't even know if it's like self-help. It's more like it's a memoir, and it's a memoir of someone who has pushed himself to the absolute limits, physically in his case. And here are some things I've learned along the way. And also you're coming from difficult circumstances, abusive dad, only black kid in a white neighborhood. Then, life was going sort of nowhere. He was really unhappy. He was overweight and stuff, and then found his way into the military. And he's the only person who's completed all the highest training in all 3 branches of the military. So he did Hell Week 3 times. And by the end of it, like his whole thing was about like finding your ceiling and then breaking through it and then finding the new ceiling. And this whole thing about like your brain is designed to protect you or seek comfort rather. So it's overcoming like mental blocks. And all of his stuff is like physical, like I've said, but they apply to, for me, I've taken a lot from it for basically productivity of like when you feel I really want to just like sit on the couch and play FIFA
unloading.
and just thinking like, no, just push through for a bit longer. And then that ends up being like the most fruitful time. The other thing I love about his story is it's not, and it's something I hate about other stories, is like, oh, and then this thing worked out really well, and then I was really successful, and then went from success to success. Oh, but then this challenging thing happened. I had a heart attack or whatever. Like, I love Stephen Fry, but his autobiography, there's a point early in his life, like in his professional life, where he goes like, oh yeah, I was cast in this ad for this thing, and anyway, because of that, I was able to buy a house, and then I was asked to write the book for this musical, so write the dialogue, and then one night having dinner with my agent, he said, oh well, you'll never have to work again because this will you'll keep getting, and it's like, for fuck's sake, Stephen Fry. Yeah. In the David Goggins book, it is failure after failure after failure. And it doesn't end with him saying, now I'm a millionaire on this public speaking circuit, which he probably is now.
Yeah.
But it ended with him saying, my military career ended. I wasn't into the politics of the military. I was into the physical challenge. He also... So he didn't, like, he was not a 4-star general. He left the military and then joined the wildfire prevention team, getting paid $12 an hour to dig trenches to stop wildfires from spreading. Shit. And that's where his story ends, because it's not about like a destination, it's about the process and it's about the journey.
Yeah, that sounds cheesy, but it's right. And sometimes I think we all forget that, but it's so true. I sat in a room with Richard Branson for like half an hour once, and he told me his most prized life events were his failures. So there's a common theme here. It's people that aren't scarred to the point of failing that they crawl into a hole,
What's next now for Childish Dino? Is there another season that's going to come after this?
I guess it's up to our overlords, but my dream would be to make Bluey length episodes. And by that I mean like 7 to 8 minutes, because I think the style of it lends itself to that length.
Yeah.
So my dream would be to make more on a bigger scale to more eyes.
Yep. My dream is for it to become a proper thing. I want to fully professional. The reason it took 4 years is because we've all been living full-time lives.
Yeah.
And so one change or one thing that we also had to do a hell of a lot. We had to set up a company. We had to, negotiate with production companies. And every little thing could take a week to a month to complete, because we're all, I live in Brisbane. So yeah, a professionalized second, third, fourth, I want 100 episodes. I want syndication. I want merchandise.
I love this little kid.
I want Emmys. I want Logies. More importantly,
I want some corduroy hats to sell.
Yes,
with this little fucker on them.
Yeah.
So big dreams, essentially.
Yeah, modest, achievable dreams.
Sorry.
At one point, that would have been terrifying to say hopes out loud, because I think I was taunting the universe. But I'm realizing that fuck it, man. I want people to see this. It's really cool.
Well, it's an awesome show. I love it. I've been really enjoying it. And is there 2 more as of today to go out? So do you want to just plug, when can people see them and where should people go to find them all?
At Childish Dino, just wherever you do social media, at Childish Dino. Yeah. Some places, like we've said with YouTube, is more for just like legacy, just because we don't want someone to Google Childish Dino and then not be able to instantly find it.
Yeah, cool.
Or go on YouTube and type in Childish Dino and not find it.
Yeah.
So, if you do find it in certain places where we are just posting it, the numbers will be less impressive, but the content will be the same.
The 2 apps left, they're about going to bedtime, and it's an ode to both kids and parents. Kids who will say anything to prevent them from putting their head down.
Yeah.
And it's for adults that have kids like that. I think they're going to see a lot of their children in it. Also, and the last one is about Dino's Aboriginality, and his nemesis has an issue with it, and it took the longest to write, and I'm very proud of it. So
awesome. Cool. I can't wait. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. This has been an awesome chat.
Thanks, Mike.
And I can't wait to watch the rest and see what it grows into.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
That's it for another episode of Mike Talks. If you want to help me make more Mike Talks, head to my Patreon, patreon.com/Radio Mike. For as little as $1 a month, you can support me and help me keep making more content. You also get access to 2 bonus podcasts every week, the TCB Overflow and the Pat and Mike Show. And I'll leave you with this. If you like this week's Mike Talks, check out this other episode I did with Broden Kelly from Auntie Donna. Here's a snippet to see you out.
We've always wanted to make a TV show. Like, even before we started doing YouTube content, that was our thing we wanted to do. And like, when we started in 2012, my whole dream was just to be like Leno and Woodley, or like Monty Python or the Young Ones or anything like that. Gotcha. I wanted to be, you do live shows and you tour them around and you do Edinburgh and you build up this core little live fan base. And then one day, hopefully a TV producer comes and you can sign a TV deal and you present that as a TV show. That was my kind of mentality.
This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.